evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Ivan Rodrigues, and on behalf of Dun & Bradstreet and DHFL, it gives me great pleasure to welcome you to this event that marks the release of the publication India's Leading BFSI Companies 2010. I'd like to take this opportunity to express our sincere gratitude and thanks to our partners. Title partner, DHFL. Principal partner, Credit Information Bureau India Limited. Insurance partners, LIC and the Oriental Insurance Company Limited. Investment partner, SMC Global Securities Limited. Associate partner, Delta Group. Beverage partner, White & McKay. Media partner, ET Now. I'd like to now introduce Mr. Ravi Saneja. Mr. Saneja is the Head Sales Economic Analysis Group, Dun & Bradstreet, India. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Ravi Saneja.
I am pleased to welcome you all today to the launch of the publication India's Leading BFSI Companies 2010. This is the third edition in the BFSI series. The banking and financial services sector, commonly referred as the BFSI domain, has played a key and a pivotal role in the economic growth story of our country through its notable contribution. In the domestic arena, the sector has proved its mettle through its sheer resilience, especially in the past couple of years, and has accounted for the robust growth. However, in the coming years, we have to understand, without undermining the pivotal role the BFSI sector has played, this sector is still in its nascent stage when it is compared with the other peers in the developed countries. Let me now quickly share with you few facts and figures about the publication that we are going to release tonight, India's Leading BFSI Companies 2010. The publication covers in all 253 companies which had an annual turnover of more than rupees 250 million. This particular 253 companies are broken into comprising of 70 banks, 30 equity broking houses, 88 NBFCs, 21 asset management companies, and 44 insurance companies. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I now have the pleasure of introducing our keynote speaker this evening, Mr. Arun Tukral. Mr. Tukral is the Managing Director, Credit Information Bureau, India Limited. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Arun Tukral.
"2011 knocks with an optimistic note for the economy. Official statistics indicate that the economy has grown by 8.9% per last quarter, and forecasters have already started marking their estimates to 9%. At this cheerful juncture, it is my pleasure to be here for the launch of India's Leading BFSI Companies 2010, which I believe will provide us rich insights for planning our growth strategies going forward. To conclude, the current macroeconomic and financial environment is fast changing. We are operating in a dynamic and challenging external conditions which have a profound impact on the way we strategize and manage our businesses. While today we have abundant information and data available, logically harnessing the power of information to make confident decisions and further business growth holds the key to potential and profitability. Thank you.
An authority in banking who brings with him a rich treasure house of experience, knowledge, and insight. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. S.S. Tharapur.
I have had the privilege of being at this function for earlier years, and I'm delighted to be here again. Now, talking about the overall growth of the economy, in the context of the international financial crisis, we in India have come out relatively unscathed. Now, among the emerging market economies, India is the second fastest growing economy in the world. Now, much of the achievement is attributed to sound and timely policies which have protected India from the turmoil. But there is considerable euphoria, not without reason, of India overtaking China, that India is the country of the future. Now, if this is what we want to do, we have to have advanced planning to locate where we have problem areas and tackle those well in time. One last point. The global integration of the Indian financial system is going to be an inexorable march. Now, Indian banking has admittedly been unscathed by the recent global crisis. It doesn't mean that we will escape future crises. As we progressively integrate, we need to be prepared for the downside risks of integration. I'm not saying that one should not integrate. You have to, but you also have to recognize the problems there too. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, with that we come to the formal release of the publication India's Leading BFSI Companies 2010 from Dun & Bradstreet and DHFL, a publication we trust will provide a great platform to the profile BFSI companies to reach out to their key, current and potential clients and provide relevant information on the BFSI industry. I'd like to now call upon Mr. S.S. Tharapur to please do the honors. I'd also like to invite on stage at this moment Mr. Mudit Bhatnagar, Head Marketing and International Business, DHFL. Ladies and gentlemen, we present India's Leading BFSI Companies 2010 from Dun & Bradstreet in association with DHFL, unrivaled and unparalleled in the industry.
Good evening once again, ladies and gentlemen, and thanks for joining us for this panel discussion. And we hope you'll do justice to the topic at hand, which in the context of the fact that we're releasing India's top BFSI companies is especially relevant. Now, let's just give you a quick background. Financial Stability and Development Council, or FSDC for short, was first mentioned in the budget last year by the Finance Minister Pranab Mukherjee in order to really address the financial crisis which had hit all of us, in fact the entire global economy. And in this context, it was devised that this FSDC would be set up to really address the issue of financial stability. That was going to be one of its core focus areas. So that's a backdrop of the FSDC. Let's start off with the first question, and one which is being asked. Do we really need an FSDC, a body like the FSDC, in a country like India, which already many say is over-regulated, and is it just a backhanded way of the government really exerting greater control? Let me start off with you, Mr. Mikri. What are your thoughts on the matter?
What comes to my mind is, apart from the crisis or the financial crisis, so to speak, is that, there are too many things. The finance minister has already spoken, even when Mr. Chidambaram was the finance minister, that we need to create Mumbai into a Shanghai. Of course, it calls for the infrastructure development also, it calls for quite a few other issues also. Yet, if that is to happen, if the interregulatory disputes, so to speak, where dispute might be a stronger word, but disagreements, different viewpoints are to be sorted out, I think we do need an entity which can really look into it. In what manner, what shape is something which we need to talk now.
Okay, so that's a yes. So clearly you pointed out many reasons. Jagannathan, do you agree?
In the world, we have examples for both situations, both that is a single regulator as well as multiple regulator. For example, if we see UK, they have a single regulatory structure in the form of Financial Services Authority. Whereas if we see US, we have a multiple regulatory system of running into each vertical has a different system. So, but if 2008 crisis proven that both of them failed, because the crisis is both UK and both US. That shows that it is not the question of single regulator or multiple regulators. It should be more a case of proper regulatory system and then effective implementation by the market participants, both by letter and spirit. It's not the number of regulators that make a difference, it's more of intent and the more of compliance standards. Still, I agree that new innovation kept on coming up. So as the new and new innovation keep coming up, these overlap areas keep increasing, no question about that. But having said that, having a one super regulator with a finance minister as the head, probably it will make Delhi as the financial capital, not the Bombay.
Okay, so that's a definite no. Mr. Dey, do you come somewhere in between?
To my mind, at this point in time, it's a halfway step. It's not really a super regulator as yet, in the sense that it does not really have a legislative power in terms of, writing regulations to supervise various financial institutions. So it remains to be seen whether this becomes a super regulator or not. And I would think that considering the increasing innovations as well as complexities in the financial and commercial world, it is important that there is a formal fora to, get the regulators together to look at, have a bird's eye view across the market.
So it will be an important meeting ground. So we've got three different aspects to it, and it's important to bring it into focus. Mr. Ratnam, now you're representing Dewan Housing Finance Corporation on the finance end, but if you look at real estate per se, you've been resisting regulators or any sort of regulator really coming in because you're saying, look, this industry doesn't need it. But here you have an FSDC which could ostensibly be looking at many areas of industry, including real estate. What's your reaction?
I think the origination of the FSDC is pretty important, even from the regulatory perspective, real estate side as well, because there needs to be somebody that needs to look at the overall scheme of things and able to sort of regulate, in the event of whatever the real estate stability price crash, that what happened in the US in terms of subprime prices, though that has not come up in Indian context, but there's always a regulator, if the watchdog is always there. They will be able to regulate you and then guide you accordingly as to what is to be done in terms of the high price inflations, and currently offtake is not there in the regular real estate point of view. So there should be a regulator.
Mr. Nandkishore, purely from a banking perspective, you have a fairly, RBI is considered to be really the king amongst the regulators, and it's been overseeing your industry fairly well. So when you have the FSDC and the prospect of perhaps more government intervention, is that how you react to it?
The stated objectives are financial stability, financial sector development, inclusion, and macro level supervision, policy supervision. But interregulatory coordination, I feel this is probably an extension of the high level coordination committee. Somebody, I guess, will not that these are not happening, the stability, the financial sector development, inclusion. Probably somebody will have to, with finance minister chairing it, maybe somebody will have to review and monitor, because that is what probably doesn't happen, which happens regularly in our private sector. So who would be monitoring whether the stated objectives are being achieved or not? Will they be achieved in a better, accelerated manner than what is being achieved today? What probably the fears were, like the turf wars, which probably will get settled, because you mentioned a few turf wars. There are control issues. For example, FMC is now under the auspices of Ministry of Consumer Affairs, Food and Public Distribution. Now it will come under the Ministry of Finance, because this will be under Ministry of Finance. So those are the issues which will have to be ironed out. But I guess, I don't think it would be such a bad idea if it does what it is expected to do. According to me, the intentions are honest, the objectives are honest, implementation is the key.
Because its stated objective is financial stability. Do you think such a body is really needed for financial stability, or we need to look at more micro issues?
We have a very vibrant equity market, but we do need very vibrant debt market. There is an element missing today, and actually that is one of the reasons that why today we rely on too much on the FII, FDIs and ECBs of the world, because though partial reason is because we are a robust economy and we are very attractive, but one of the reason is that we internally don't have an infrastructure, the vibrant debt market where corporates can go and trade papers, and I personally think that if we look at this, that entity who can come and coordinate across regulator, across financial sectors to ensure that we internally built the most vibrant, debt market with, addressing some of the regulatory arbitrage, philosophies and principles, and the effective coordination. I think it will go a long way in addressing the structural issue.
We are here to talk about the advantages and limitations. Clearly, there are lots of ifs and buts, but is it a sense of confusion as to really what is this FSDC going to be all about? Is that the sense that you have when you see the government taking these steps, or is it very clear that, I'd like to get a reaction from each one of you. When you talk about advantages and limitations, and that's the discussion at hand, and you have a body like the FSDC, according to you, do the advantages outweigh some of the limitations that we've spoken about?
Yeah, that's exactly what I've been, pointing out, because again, one more thing that as you would see, and as one of the panel members also mentioned, that we have a UK which is on the unified model and we have a US which is on the diversified model. Now they are trying to flip-flop. We had US which was on the capitalist health system and the UK which was on the socialist health system. They have been trying to flip-flop for the last 5 years. So it's a matter of doing it right at this point of time, and as the system evolves, hopefully it will fall in place. If it doesn't, then things will evolve as well. See, from that.
But what are the steps that you'd like to see this government take, or rather this body take, as it evolves? Mr. Nandkishore?
I would not like to follow any particular model because I believe we have got enough brains in North Block, South Block, RBI, SEBI to carve out a structure which suits Indian financial system from a regulator perspective. I'm not saying suits as in better. Just to take a contrarian view for a minute, do we need FSDC with these regulators? Really don't. But now that we are here, what we are now trying to do is that what is the role that FSDC can play and what kind of better coordination they can do so that all the regulators live in harmony, work in harmony, and there is no inter-regulatory issues, turf issues what we had. So probably this will only be better for our Indian financial system according to me.
Would you have liked the mandate of the FSDC to be more focused? I think there are some 8 things that the FSDC is supposed to do. One of them is financial stability, the other is inter-regulator, but you have many other things, financial inclusion, coordinating with other regulators overseas. There are some 8 metrics. Do you think the mandate is too wide?
I don't think so, because I think there are about 5 or 6 broad high-level objectives, and all of them do require coordination across financial segments, across regulators. One of the key objectives is financial sector development, which increasingly will require, where there will be overlaps and there will be a requirement for coordinated, posturing from regulators to help the financial market develop.
Financial inclusion may not be dependent on number of regulators, it will depend on number of investors.
Yeah.
Right? For example, as of now, India has 1.8 crore demat accounts out of 120 crore population. Technically, we are talking about 1.5% penetration. That is the major concern. So, financial inclusion is more a case of number of investors, not number of regulators. And one more point is, we are trying to come out with new vehicles, forgetting we have to lay the roads first. The road here is the demat account. Next, we can think about interest rate future. Next, we can think about securities lending and borrowing.
Right, absolutely. So those are the products that really need to come in. But if you take a look at some of the recent sort of mess-ups or big problems that have happened, for instance, what's happening with the telecom scandal is denting entire India's image because of what's happened. And here you have a regulator in cahoots with really the government and all the various officials. Again, when we talk about the mandate of the FSDC and talk about financial stability, do you think, for instance, this could have been avoided?
Scams are not new to the world. They do happen across the world, irrespective of the regulators, because it's more based on the human greed and existence of regulation or lack of regulation. So I think any kind of regulatory system, something or other will keep happening. So that's part and parcel of the system, and that has proven over centuries. And as far as financial stability definition is concerned, remember one quote by Dr. D. Subbarao, I think little not so this thing, but he said once, financial stability is more like a porn movie. You can't define how it is, but when you see, you know it.
Okay. Okay, I'm not sure if she should end the discussion on that note, because I just want to quickly get on board some apprehensions that you have in terms of how this is likely to evolve.
especially from the Indian context, is very, very, very critical, because as opposed to the other developed economy, we are still in the nascent stage of financial service sector, and as you rightly said, that there's a penetration which has long way to go. And the true test of this body will be the, those penetrations and the inclusions and the literacy and the stability. I personally would think that this will evolve in a way where it probably will become more cohesive unit that actually goes about implementing the financial sector reforms, as opposed to trying to say, okay, it's like a tug of war, or it's whatever it is. I think that piece is probably the initial apprehension, and slowly and gradually it probably will all fall in place with regard to in line with our reforms direction.
Mr. Nandkishore?
See, what I feel is that Love has already covered. What I feel it should not evolve is a tool in the hands of political bosses to hijack the system. I mean, that is something I'm not saying it would be, but if there is an excessive political interference, probably, it can degenerate into something what we don't want it to degenerate into. But otherwise, the idea, as I already said in the beginning, it appeals to me.
Okay.
I think it's more important as to what FSDC does, like these both gentlemen have covered. The political intervention in terms of the individual investigations or in the FSDC as a whole, that should be kept outside the purview of the entire functioning of the FSDC. That will actually give us a thrust and momentum in taking this forward.
Mr. Dey, you mentioned that the FSDC has not been given any legislative power, so actually it's without any teeth right now.
Well, I would think that a decision taken by the FSDC would have to be ultimately implemented by the respective regulatory bodies, for which they are completely empowered. But yes, as a body, as far as I know, they don't have a legislative power as yet.
So your apprehensions?
My apprehension, frankly, to some extent, is that we could get into go a little bit on the extreme side and go in for over-regulation, if you will. So, to my mind, that is one apprehension which is there in the formation of a body like this.
I think, Jagannathan, you've been pretty much you've been standing firm on the ground that we do not need such a body.
I am just wishing for Bombay, otherwise the financial capital will shift to Delhi.
I think that's a positive for you and me, so let's hear from there.
No, I would like to see, I am not too clear in which direction it is headed. And let us see if it gets any powers, whether we still see spats in public between regulators. I think that will be the litmus test. And only time will tell, very early in the day, to really see. One thing we are sure of, it's not a super regulator. The finance minister has gone out of the way to emphasize that. But let us see which direction it goes. If you ask me about my apprehension is it shouldn't be that, I personally am very afraid of the term committees. Because that's like, you want to commit a murder, tie somebody here and 20 guys beat him with a stick and then you don't know who's actually killed him. So let's see how it evolves.
And I think on that note, we'll bring an end to this discussion on Financial Stability and Development Council. The hope is that this will give us a clearer picture going ahead about which way policy is going to go. We'll see lesser regulatory spats which have an impact on investors as well as the industry alike. And of course, the larger goal of financial stability and fewer scams and fewer shocks that we have seen over the last few years impacting our financial sector. But then, this is a story that's unfolding, and let's hope the government and the regulator together really work in the country's best interest. Well, on that note, many thanks for joining us this evening for this discussion.